Warning, this video is intended for adult collectors. It contains plastic collectibles, questionable opinions, and someone who owns way too many plastic robots. It's too late. Random review is about to begin.
Hello everyone! So, I know yesterday's video was on the weird side for this channel for me. I appreciate everyone who gave it a chance, and if you didn't, I understand it's not your thing. Trying to make it humorous though, so if you're curious, I'd appreciate you going back and taking a look, because it really does help out the channel when I get to do things like that. At the very least, I'm super proud that my channel's at a point where it can get opportunities like that. And I'm hoping to get you a few more, and hopefully a little bit more in line with what I do. But until then, I've decided, I gave you a weird review yesterday. I think I owe you a pretty standard one now. And we're going to go with something brand new, just out. Probably not even out at retail for some of us. But Hasbro Pulse managed to send mine a little bit early. So we're going to take a look at the brand new Legacy Pointblank. His first new toy since G1. It only took, 30 years? 30-something years? Took a long time. Took a long time to get another Target Master anything, now that I think about it. But we are going to take a careful look at him today. So Pointblank is rendered in his futuristic vehicle mode. Very, very sharp. Very nice looking. I really love... I love the futuristic cars way more than the modern hot rods and sports cars. I just feel like there's so much more interesting shape and design to them. There's a lot more cleverness in what they can do. I love the look of this, and I really like the look of this. He is molded in a very nice deep shade of red. Can we just, take a second to, appreciate the fact that, once upon a time, Hasbro was so deathly scared of releasing toys that were all the same color that we had characters like Armada Tidal Wave, a prominent character in the cartoon, who had to be released in green instead of purple because there were too many purple characters. Now it feels like almost every character I pick up lately is red. So I don't know if they've gotten over that or if it's just an accident, but for whatever reason, we've been dealing with a lot of brand new red figures lately, and I'm not complaining. Red is nice. So, yeah. So it is very much in tune with the original. It is decoed in a very bright baby blue. Very interesting contrast to the colors. They don't normally go together. And I do think color-wise it's helped out by the translucent blue they used for his windshield. Though we will acknowledge this is entirely inaccurate because in both of his animation models, the Rebirth and Headmaster model, and in his original toy, all of that had silver. So unfortunately, it's completely inaccurate, and I'm not sure why they went with dark blue, but it doesn't look bad. I think the only thing that I would disagree to the look of is the fact that I really wish the top of it had been painted too, so this canopy and the shapes were outlined the way they properly were in the original toy. So there's a little bit of cost cutting going on. Now we have learned from the designer there is quite a bit of cost cutting to this toy. Originally he was going to have his engine shield section from the original G1 toy. That got scrapped, so now it's just all integrated parts. Things like that. And that's pretty much because they really wanted to get the Target Master in there. So Peacemaker here is just a simple 3-piece figure, but you'd be surprised. Apparently, trying to put a Target Master into this thing really upped the budget. So if anything is missing on the paint apps, that's probably the reason why. But you know what? I'll take that trade-off, because Target Masters without their guns is annoying. And when they tried to sell the Target Masters separately, it was doubly annoying. So that's a real simple thing. Change 1, change 2. He is all set in his robot mode. Can this old camera of mine focus in on such a tiny dude? Yes, it can. He's got no points of articulation, nothing at all. He is just a basic individual figure, pretty much the original Target. It's basically the original, like the original Target Master, except better painted and sculpted than the original toy was. So I don't really expect more than that out of a Target Master, if I'm going to be real with you. So I'm going to put him aside. We're going to focus on the vehicle again. You can see lots of little sculpted details going into the mode. Really like it, especially toward the rear end here. There's a lot of individual sculpted parts that are really, really nice. Definitely comes across as this like super futuristic techno supercar. I love it. Love the look of it. It does get a little bit weird in here where some of the parts for robot mode kind of work together. I like how it all comes together to create this solid midsection, but it does lose a little bit of the smoothness that goes into the front and the rear. Just a minor distraction, really. Nothing really to speak about in the rear either, just some transformation junk. But beyond that, yeah, he's a very, very nice car, I'll say that. Got 5mm ports on the side for mounting guns, and the Target Master actually mounts in these two grooves here at the rear spoiler. So yeah, he actually integrates a little bit differently than normal, and actually like much more smoothly than some of those like gun on top of car situations. All right, so the vehicle mode is nice. We need to go into the robot mode in order to get a really good look at this. So transformation time. Oh, our favorite time, huh? All right, so I'm going to start transformation by moving the canopy out of the way, and then these sections here I'm going to unpeg and fold up. We'll move over to the other side and do it there as well. Now we're going to get into the tricky parts, because these pieces are held in by ball joints and they have to be at the right angle for the rear section to slip. So fold it in like so. It's going to rub a little bit when you fold everything out, but don't worry, it's going to be okay. We'll get through this. And from there, fold out the legs like so. Make sure I'm actually doing it right so you can actually see what's going on. There we go. I don't like that rubbing that it does in order to transform. I can see a little bit of scuff forming, but I haven't figured out a cleaner way of doing it. This is a really awkward piece. You just have to move it into the best position and hope for the best. Hopefully it doesn't wear things down too much. We'll see. Probably not going to transform it too much, so there is that. Alright, so I'm going to rotate the torso 180 degrees. These can sit here on the side for now. Now we need to go and talk about the top side of this. So go ahead and split it. It's not going to go completely outward. It's going to leave a little bit of room. So for this part of the transformation, we need to rotate the arms downward out of the front halves of the vehicle. So flip them up first, swing them down like so, and that's going to clear the elbow to adjust into the right position. Rotate that piece across the forearm, and we'll do it again over here. It's a tricky little bit of engineering on this side. It's actually interesting once you like know how it functions and everything twists, but figuring it out at first is a little bit odd. Not a bad thing, it just means it's doing something in some movements that I'm not really used to. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It does mean that something unique is happening on this transformer. So fold that piece back, and then we will open up the back compartment, flip the head up, make sure these little tabs go into the base of the plate holding his head in position. And that is going to finish our transformation and give us our point blank in robot mode. Now, it is actually an interesting transformation. It's fairly different from the standard, which is, very enjoyable. I will give it that. It does some things I don't normally see these days. That said, it might be a little bit, maybe a little bit awkward for some, but once you know how the parts all move together, that's nothing. I think the worst of it is trying to unflip those legs. Like I said, still haven't figured out a really good position to get those legs past the ball joints. Yeah, and it's odd. Speaking of, I did forget to close those down. So, hang on. We're going to fill out the midsection by rotating them around and folding them in like that. So that just kind of fills out the belly a little bit. Just make sure you get all your details straight, that's all. Alright, so, proportionally, he looks really, really nice. So, there is some oddity to his visuals. Now, I will admit, cool as it is to have a toy store as a background, it doesn't do me good sometimes. So you can see there, he's got no flap covering up the top of his hips like a lot of Transformers would these days. So his pelvis just kind of looks bare. And it just kind of looks like his torso stops, and then there's just a block for the pelvis attached to the hips. It feels like he's missing a few parts in order to smooth all of that out and make it look a little bit more natural. So that's unfortunate. So you can see, like, yeah, it's just weird. There's just so many hard angles in that groin area. Don't make the joke. There's a joke there to be made. Don't make it dirty, all of you. So, if you want the good side of it, he's completely clean. Like, your one piece of kibble is just a little bit extra on the windshield. That's literally it. He's completely smooth all the way across besides that. The head is going to be an issue for some, but I don't think it's going to be too big of a problem. So the head is actually based on his design from Rebirth, which is actually based on I'm trying to remember how it is, and I should have looked it up beforehand. But essentially, the head is sculpted to be after the Rebirth design rather than the Headmaster's design. So you do get a little bit of confusion there, and it is room for Hasbro to slip that extra head in there as like a re-release some point with modified colors and all that. Might see that down the road. As it stands, it's kind of a pretty standard head, but the most interesting thing is that tiny little mohawk of his. Beyond that, there's not really a whole lot going on, but it's not a bad head sculpt. I think it looks fine. Its visor's painted. I like seeing paint on the eyes rather than trying to put translucent in there. So overall, yeah, so shape-wise, he's got a lot more blue going on than he did in the robot mode. Now that the spoilers are the knees, that is accentuated a lot more. This is definitely where the chest detail is getting on my nerves a little bit. His entire torso just looks completely blank, and I'm not a fan of that. I really needed that extra paint in there just to kind of break the chest up instead of just this big flat screen. You're not Soundwave. You can't get away with that. Even Soundwave has that little gold rim around his window. This one doesn't even finish his own rim. It's just on the sides, and that's it. So that's a little unfortunate, but it's not terrible. It's not the worst detraction. So to talk about the worst detraction, what people keep hollering about, we need to go into the robot mode. So, or to go into the articulation at this point. So let me take into close-up so we can get into this a little bit more detail than usual. The neck does rotate. No ball joint, but it does go left and right all the way around. All right, shoulders. You do have this joint here from Transformation that still is useful. It also rotates up, and then you have an outward slide here. So all of this is kind of awkward to get shoulder articulation, but it does leave you with a decent amount. Now, here's where things get a little bit awkward. He's got an elbow joint that sits really high up on the bicep because of how the toy is engineered for Transformation. And you do have that chunk on the arms that is actually preventing a 90-degree bend. That's not great. Also, because this all hinges down from the vehicle like the original toy, he doesn't have room for a normal bicep swivel. You have to rotate down here, which means you lose the functionality of twisting the elbow in different directions. So you're losing out on some significant articulation for a character who holds a gun. So that is pretty unfortunate. That's where a lot of divisiveness over this toy comes from. I still think it's okay. It's not great. I've seen way better, and normally we get better than this. With the engineering going on here, I kind of understand where they kind of simplified it, but it's unfortunate that we lost some of the effect of this arm. It's a really just awkward set of arm articulation all the way around, unfortunately. All right, midsection, all 360 degrees. The hips are completely clear. Like, there's literally nothing around the hips, like I said. So, yep, you get the thigh swivel, it works fine. The knees have all the bend in the world you could possibly want. The ankle tilt works fine. So, like I said, articulation-wise, he's going to be a weird one. He can get into plenty of poses. Like, he's actually functional as an articulated action figure. But there is a lot of weirdness that is limiting what he can do. And like I said, like when your main gimmick is the weaponry you carry, it is a very bad thing to lose arm articulation. You know, how I kind of feel like a sword transformer needs that vertical hinge in the wrist in order to really work a sword pose. Yeah, I feel like I can't get like a completely proper or like natural pose for his, for like wielding his gun, which is really bad. It's really unfortunate because otherwise this is a pretty interesting toy that has a lot of good stuff going on. It's just, his arms really do hurt him in the long run. Before we call this an episode, let's just do this to point it out really quick because everybody's pointed this out, so why not? If you rotate things around like so and then rotate like this, yes, he starts looking very similar to Armada Blur. The elbows work in the backwards direction, so those wouldn't have to be flipped. I'll tell you right now, these forearm pieces are entirely reversible and only held by one screw. So in assembly, you just have to switch those around and his hands would be able to face the other way. So to make an Armada Blur, there's plenty of retooling involved here, but all this would have to do is just become an Autobot chest and, do something different with this. And you'd probably have a pretty decent facsimile of the Armada character. Because this design is so unique, I kind of do expect that to be the direction they take, but who knows? Hasbro does some crazy remolds these days. So that, my friends, is Legacy Pointblank. It's an interesting vehicle and a different transformation. I give it credit for that, but I'm not sure a unique transformation was worth the sacrifice in his arms. If he wasn't a target master, if the gun accessory for him wasn't such a big deal, I might give it more of a pass and just go, okay, well, the arm articulation's weird, but you can still pose it. But because the target master element is so prominent, it's really, really hard to give that a pass. I don't mind the figure itself. Like I said, I have fun transforming it, and it's decent enough. But if you're really into getting your figures posed, or if you just, like really like freedom of movement in your action figures, this one is going to suffer a lot for you. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.